This is The Real Truth with Tommy Spina. I'm Tommy Spina, as you know. Today's guest, I am following up on last week's show, episode, I should say, is a better word in this dynamic, was with John McMillan, the executive director of the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission, and today's guest is Vince Schilleci. Hello, Vince.
How are you?
Welcome.
Thanks for having us here today.
I'm glad to have you here. And what people don't know about Vince is not only do we have roots in our heritages that go way back, but that he's a lawyer like me, and he's a lawyer like me that likes to do other things besides law, because law can be tedious and you need to get a diversion going. So Vince has somehow, and we're going to learn about it in just a minute, found himself with one of the dispensary licenses for what I believe to be a facility located in Avondale. Is that correct?
Actually, we have three. The first will be in Montgomery, and then in Talladega, and right now the third is scheduled for Coleman, but there may be a change.
So you're staying out of Jefferson County. Not saying that in a negative way.
So, and I'm not sure when this show will air.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. So we actually filed, you'll love this, since we were talking about Bessemer, we filed a request for a change in location because there's a location that was an integrated license had originally applied for in Bessemer that we believe we can get open much quicker. And it's in a underserved community where, you're not getting, you got not only Jefferson County, but you pull from East Tuscaloosa, Bibb County, North Shelby County. Mm-hmm. We think it's about 5 minutes away from the new hospital. So we're waiting to see if the commission will grant that change of relocation.
Which one would you replace?
Coleman.
Because you're only allowed three.
Only allowed three right now. They're with the potential for a fourth once all the dispensaries are opened, and if the commission sees they need to grant that. So,
well, I'm not going to say 90 words or less, but we have about 45 minutes to talk here. We can go over, we can go under. It doesn't matter, but how'd you find your way to this spot you are now in? Because getting from A to B, the timeline has been incredibly long. Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine, and I won't ask you to be specific, but I know it's cost a lot of money to get from A to B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're still not at B.
Not there. Well, we're getting closer. We're now.
We're closer than we've ever been.
Absolutely.
So just sort of tell us the story.
Absolutely. My cousin owned one of the beer distributorships here in the state of Alabama.
Was that Charles or JB?
Actually, the other side of the family, originally was Frank Schilleci and his grandson, Matthew Hogan. So this was the Budweiser side. The other side.
Talking the Miller.
Yeah, you're talking the Miller. So on the Budweiser side.
Wow.
And, done work with Matthew and Frank my entire career. And back in 21, when this law passed, Matthew and I started talking because you have an industry that by its nature has to be highly regulated. And not only because of the products that's being sold, people don't understand the tax collection side of this. I mean, once you have the sales tax and a 9% medical cannabis tax, we're going to be one of the largest tax collectors in the state, And so having that background of dealing in a highly regulated industry like the alcohol beverage industry, we thought there's a good fit here. My cousin about a year ago sold that distributorship, looking forward to this industry because we really want to make this the best industry in the country. What we want people to say, if we're looking at a medical cannabis industry, how do we start it up? We're going to Alabama. And I know you're going to laugh at me for saying that because of all the litigation.
Oh.
We're past that.
Well, that's a different.
That's a different. But,
yeah,
but
yes.
We want to be the poster child. And we thought.
The template.
Exactly. And so we really want to take a leadership role in this industry and help grow it to where it needs to be. Because at the end of the day, forget the litigation. Forget the profit. Forget all of it. This is a patient-centered industry. And if you're not going to be patient-focused and patient-centered, you don't need to be in this business. because at the end of the day, that's who we're here to serve.
And according to John, when we talked about statewide revenues, it was a staggering number. I can't remember exactly the number he said last week.
Absolutely. I mean,
there were hundreds of
exactly.
There's
lots of tax revenue for the state. But there's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle because there's still patient education. There's still patient qualification. I think for 2 weeks now, maybe not even 2 weeks, a week and a half, you finally have 5 doctors that can actually start certifying patients. In other words, they can talk to patients, see if this is the right therapy for them, and give them a card.
So a qualified patient today, as we sit here, can actually get a card and be ready to get his script filled.
They can go to a doctor, get a card. There's still some things you've got to open up. The state has to officially get the what's the word I'm looking for? For lack of a better term, the state roll. So the tracking program, which we've got set up. But now we're at a point where we've got to have product that's tested and product that's processed. We've got to get our stores open. So in the near future, you'll see patients being certified. My goal is to be open by March 1. We went ahead and, before going through litigation, we went ahead and bought some things and made some investments that some people said, well, you're an idiot. You don't have this license. But, in every iteration of this, we came in first. We were unanimously approved every time. We had the highest scores. We had the highest score after the presentation. So we felt that in the investigative hearings, no one challenged our witnesses. No one cross-examined me. I was actually looking forward to that. I was hoping, to
it's not fun.
Nobody, through it. I think everybody realized we had a good plan in place. We have a good business plan in place. We've got a good team in place, and that we're ready to go. Now it's incumbent on us it's time for us to put this industry forward and to get open, and that's what we're rushing to do. So we started construction on Montgomery, or we started
a freestanding building there.
We bought a building, so we bought all of our locations, and so we're doing an inside model renovation of that building. Same in Talladega. We bought a building. We're doing some renovations there, and if the relocation request is upheld or granted, I should say, we've got that building. If it's not, Coleman would be a ground up, and that property we don't own, we would be working with a landlord to build that up.
So when you talk about this grading process, what are they looking at, and who is doing the grading?
Well, and as you know, you're about the litigation. It's been a very highly litigated issue and topic. So when Alabama, when you look nationwide at how these programs work, there's a merit base where you fill out an application, you show here's my business plan, here's my forecast, here's my team, here's the money I have set aside that I'm showing you. And it's graded. In this case, it was graded by folks down at South Alabama. It
seems to have a heavy concentration of dispensaries, by the way, from what I've seen on the map.
And I want to get to that issue because I think you're going to see a change. A lot of people, let's hold on to that thought because I want to talk about that concentration because you make a great point there. But back to the application process, Alabama had a very difficult application. You really had to show this is how we're going to operate. You had to have an employee handbook. You had to have procedures and processes in place that you were showing. This is how we're going to run our business. This is our cash handling. This is our inventory control. This is what happens if there's severe weather. This is what happens if there's a robbery or burglary. You have to show that business plan.
Is it cash only?
Yes. There are certain programs where they call them ATM or PIN ATM programs where think of it as almost like rather than getting the cash out of the ATM, you put your not credit card, but your ATM card in, and it gets the cash on the system. And so, think of it as a cashless ATM, but for the most part, it is a cash business. Some of those programs are tough because, it could be that they use the ATM, but the money doesn't clear the bank for 2 weeks because you can't, from a banking standpoint, it's still illegal. It's still a Schedule I narcotic right now. And so most people, I think, will use cash. We're not going to be able to take credit cards, but you can use, this.
It sounds like this card you described is sort of like an internal debit card.
Something like that, yeah. And you use your debit card for it, but it is something like that.
In other words, you could transfer money from your account to this card that could be used in your store.
Mm-hmm. And it's really just all on the screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that is a possibility that we're looking at. Of course, with a little help from the federal government, with the Safer Bank Act could really help our patients out moving forward. We can talk about that in a minute. But back to the application process. So you have this merit-based application process. And then you have another process that you see in other states where, hey, if you want to open up and you can show the bare minimum, we'll give you a license. And if you look at states that have done that, you typically see more trouble, whether it be a recall of 80% of the product that was on the shelves, like in Mississippi when they opened up their program. Literally, in the first year, they had to recall 80% of the product.
Because?
The testing wasn't done correctly, didn't test for pesticides. And I'm not saying those folks aren't doing a great job over there, but, you look at Oklahoma.
Yes, John has told us our cannabis for medical purposes in Alabama is essentially organic.
Absolutely.
And tagged.
From seed to sale. It's called the metric system. And so we have this process where it could either be you fill out this application and we'll let you have one, or we're going to try and find who we think will be the best operators. Alabama's a limited state and there's only a limited number of licenses. And so, of course, people get upset because there are some good operators that weren't going to be awarded a license. If there's only 5 licenses and 32 people going for those licenses, there are some that aren't qualified, but there's probably more than 5 that were qualified. And that's where the fight is.
Are you talking about at the integrated level?
Absolutely. And it spilled over a little bit into the dispensary level. And, to go back in time, all of this has been said about the application process and the blind score and this, that, and the other. Where we are today, you have 3 of the 4 that were originally awarded a license back in June 23rd, or June 12th, I'm sorry.
So after all that litigation,
3 of the 4 in my group, yeah. And the one
75%.
Yeah, and the one that didn't, the 2 people in front of them got out. They said, we don't want to do it. That process worked. That's my opinion. But I understand,
And
there's always.
They get the 4th?
And that one company got the 4th one. So, and very good. I mean, you've got 4 just outstanding. There's one that's being challenged. But you've really got 4 great operators.
You're talking about integrated.
I'm talking about in my category.
In the dispensary.
Yeah. Integrated, you've got a lot of great companies. I think all the awardees, that current awardees, they're great.
True Leaf is out of Canada.
They're MSO, exactly. Yeah, they're a great
they're also
company.
in Florida.
They are one of the industry standards. Then you've got Sustainable, which is a all Alabama company. Have come in, if they're not in first place, they've won it every single time. You've got some great folks ready to go. I'm sure there are some great folks that weren't awarded that have experience. Mm-hmm. The problem is, again, in a limited licensed state, there are going to be folks that aren't going to get a license. And that doesn't mean in the future we're not going to have to expand that. I mean, as this industry grows and there's more patients that adopt it, I'm sure they'll need to expand it eventually. That's way in the future. And so, I do wish we could have had a quicker start to this.
Is there a protocol for the person who greets you at the door?
Absolutely.
So walk us through a customer experience.
And I think this is going to take some time for people to get used to, because I think most people think, hey, I'm going to this dispensary today and I'm going to buy my product. We're not going to let you in. So if you come into our dispensary, we have what's called a man trap. So you walk in, you show your medical card to the receptionist or the security guard, or whoever. We may have, we'll probably have both. Maybe if it's a slow day, we'll have the security guard as a receptionist, but you check in. We cannot let you onto the floor. Really, we can't let you into our facility without a medical card. So if you don't have a medical card, you're not coming in to our facility.
You need to gender neutralize that man trap, by the way.
I'm using the industry term there. How about that? So the person trap. There you go. The patient. How we'll call it the patient trap. How about that?
Is it akin to that tube they make me go through because I have titanium hips?
No, nothing like that. But then, to make it a personal experience, you'll wait in the lobby until you can get one-on-one with one of our certified dispensers, and they can talk about, here, what are your ailments? What are you looking for? Here's the different products we offer, and we'll go from there. So this isn't...
How are those individuals trained?
So there's a state training, obviously, but, we're going to be training our certified dispensers as well. We've got a medical board, 3 doctors. We've got a pharmacist as well, who's a pharmacist, a leader in.
That's on premise?
Not on premise. They're working on the training for the certified dispensers. Okay. Certified dispensers also, it can't just be anyone. You have to have 2 years experience in a field like biology, medicine, pharmacy, other science, or the medical cannabis industry, so we're going to be relying on farm techs, or pharmacists or whomever it is. There's going to be someone there at all time to be that certified dispenser to kind of manage, the other,
like the barista.
Or more of a pharmacist. I mean, when you go to a pharmacy, Walgreens, you've got a pharmacist in charge, and then you have the folks working under that pharmacist.
Yeah.
That's the model that you'll see. It's something like that. We just call ours a certified dispenser, if that makes sense. And each location will have one. And so, we're going to make sure we educate our patients and we deal with them. Kind of our motto is we want to be compassionate and professional to our patients. We want them to come back. We want to know our patients on a first name basis. We want to know what their ailments are. So we can say, hey, we got this in. I know you've been using this, but we got this in. This may be better for that.
Are you concerned at all about the recreational user showing up under the guise of a medical cannabis legit card, but he's really not there because he's suffering from an ailment that qualifies? He's gotten the card because he's been treated for depression most of his life, and now he wants to try something else.
Well, but if it's a qualifying condition, I don't know that it would be a rec program at that point. And it's interesting,
I'm not saying that it's a rec program. I'm saying that the consumer taking advantage of it.
Okay. Again, we're relying on these doctors, and the doctors have to go through, not anybody can become a doctor to certify patients. Right now there are 5 in the state, and you have to take, I can't remember the exact hours, but it's a long course that you have to take.
Yeah.
And then once you take that course, you have to be approved by the board of medical examiners at a live meeting. So it's not that you can just sign up, hey, I want to sell this. You've got to take the course. And once you take the course, the board of medical examiners have to say, yes, we trust that you're going to do this the right way. So we believe the law protects us from that.
So the patient goes through the patient portal trap, the patient trap. What did you call it?
We'll call it the patient trap, but the main trap, yeah. The
patient tube.
Yeah.
And then he goes in and he's greeted by a professional who talks one-on-one with him about why he's there and what he's looking to acquire for what purpose.
Exactly.
he makes a choice. He leaves there after he pays. He tries it in the confines of his own home. If he likes it and it serves its purpose, he'll come back and do it again.
Absolutely.
If it didn't serve his purpose, he'll come back and then re-engage with that same person. And that person would have the skill set to say, well, then let's try this.
Exactly.
Well, what distinguishes the various formulations of what's being cultivated?
Sure, and there's limited products that we can sell.
You mean the form of the product?
The form, exactly. The form of the processed cannabis. So you're looking at gelatinous cubes, gummies. Okay, only one flavor, peach.
How did we come up with peach?
The commission, I think, came up with it. I'm not sure why they chose peach, but I think the statute said we could only have one flavor. I do want to point out that,
Just a curious question. I was asked, and I didn't have an answer. I think it may be the thing on I-65 going down to Peach Park.
Yeah, but I'm not sure exactly how they landed on peach. But you have the gelatinous cubes or the gummies. You have suppositories. You have the ointments. You have the tinctures. You have gel caps or caplets. Transdermal patches, nebulizers, and inhalers. Am I missing anything there?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So one of the things is, what is your ailment? I think of, a PTSD situation. And if they're having an episode, they need to get something that delivered quick, right? They need it to kick in. From our training, the edible, it may take an hour to kick in because of the way it's digested in your system. And so it could be that we're looking, this patient needs the product that is the quickest acting, right? It could be that...
Which one would that be?
At this point, I'm thinking it's probably going to be the tincture, that you do under your tongue. And this is, I'm not... Any edible is going to take slower time because you got to digest it. And so, when you can do that, and I'm
same would probably be true with a tablet of any sort, just like regular non-cannabis medication for pain. I mean, it doesn't immediately kick in.
And and I think there are other delivery methods not allowable under Alabama law, namely, combustion or vape. That is a quicker delivery method, but they're not allowed under the law right now. And so, but it could be a patient that, again, it could be a stomach cancer patient. They literally can't swallow, so it may have to be a suppository, maybe a tincture. Maybe someone who just doesn't want to, just can't stand the flavor of peach. So we really have to look at what that patient's qualified condition is and then help them choose the best product. If that makes sense.
And are there limitations on the hours of operation?
One of the things, yes, that's an interesting question because internally we're debating that right now. What are our hours going to be? Because
I mean, does the commission have
off the
some
top?
rule?
At the top of my head, I can't remember if there's an actual.
I never asked John
before or after. Our thought. You see in a lot of other states, they start off, maybe 8 to 5 or 10 to 6. That's kind of where they start off, and then over time, to go to where the patient is, they say, okay, well, patients aren't coming in after 5. But they're lined up at the door at 8. Or boy, they don't want to come in until 11, but they, want to come after work at 7. So a lot of that is we're still working on. I don't recall.
Patient driven.
Yeah, it's going to be patient driven. I don't recall there being a set time, but, and I think that's also, we're going to be dealing with municipalities on that. And what they say as far as time goes. But, is it going to be, like some of the more mature markets, where it's open at 8 and closes at 10? No. That would, I think, kill business, because you wouldn't have people coming in. But, I think that's going to be a partnership with whatever municipality.
I think what people have to understand is to focus on the pharmaceutical aspect and medical remedy aspect of the product and why the legislation was passed to begin with versus the younger generation that grew up with marijuana. I did not grow up with marijuana. It was coming into play about the time, I would say, I was in my second year of college.
Sure,
so,
sure.
So we're talking about the early 70s. I mean, it's been around, of course, because of that movie. What is it? There's some movie.
Reefer Madness.
Yeah,
it was funny. If you go back in time, cannabis was used as a, we're talking about the late 19th century, early 20th century. I mean, it was sold to help with things,
just like cocaine.
Just like cocaine, exactly. Where historically, if you look at cannabis, where it kind of took a turn for worse was in the 20s. And, it went from being called cannabis to marijuana. And then that reefer madness came out, and it was classified as a class 1 narcotic. I do think over time, people are starting to see the testing, particularly in Europe, where, they're running clinical trials because you can run clinical trials in Europe. There's a major one that was, I think they announced the findings back in late 25 that a cannabis-based product had a better effect on chronic lower back pain than opioids did.
Without the addiction.
Exactly. And
exposure.
So, what that does, while we don't have that FDA test done, and it'll have to go through that same type of FDA testing here in the States, doctors who are certifying now for a chronic pain issue, they can look to those tests. And it's not a test necessarily paid for by, the cannabis company. It's a real, I believe, kind of the European equivalent to the FDA. And they can say, yeah, if it's working there, it may not be the exact product, but we can try these products for that here in the States if we're in a medical cannabis state. And I'm glad you hit on that, because when you look at the news and they talk about medical cannabis in Alabama, and I appreciate everything that the news has done, because it's been a long story with a lot of ups and downs. But one of the things, if I could say, change anything, every time they talk about medical cannabis, they show flower. They show the stuff, the flower that
Make it look like
exactly.
the courtroom.
That's illegal in Alabama. We cannot sell flower.
Right.
It's illegal. And so I think they would help the public's understanding. And maybe when we get the products on the shelf, we can start showing that instead of showing something that can't be sold, and maybe, helping people to avoid thinking, I'm going to get what I want by faking. And they see its gummies, they see its pills, they see its tincture, they see its ointments. They'll understand what this program is.
Well, so you have the cultivator, which naturally creates the flower. From flower, it has to get to the form that it gets to be on your shelf.
Exactly.
Is that the processor?
That's the processor.
That converts the flower into some other form?
Basically, they're pulling the oil out. They're pulling that oil out.
Do you understand? I'm sorry. Go ahead. You finish.
Well, they pull the oil out, and there's
I have to be quiet.
No worries. There's different ways of doing it. There's a solventless way of doing it. If you go in, I was fortunate to visit one of the processors that's ready to go, and they were showing me the laboratory and everything, and it's interesting, how these different processes for pulling that oil out to then put in the gummies or the pills.
Do you understand the word terpenes and how that fits into all this?
I do. I do think when you start getting to the word terpenes, you're really getting closer to that recreational side. And I'm not saying there's not medical benefits to it, but when you start talking about the terpenes, you're talking about a taste. You're talking about a flavor profile as well. And so right now what we need the oil. So if, in some states where flower is legal, there is all sorts of different ways of growing. And there's more potent flower. There's almost like a craft beer type thing.
Yeah.
Right now, what the state needs is the cannabis, the flower that gives us the most oil that we can pull out so we can make the products for the patients. And so...
is there a THC level limit?
For minors, there's a 3% limit. You can't sell or prescribe or take anything over 3%. The daily limit for adults to start off with is 50 milligrams a day. After the first, I guess, 90 days, you can go up to 75 milligrams a day. If you have a terminal illness, a doctor can go over 75 milligrams a day. And then we are limited in what we can sell at any given time. I believe it's 60 days supply. So those are those limits.
So Mr. Patient comes in, he's limited in terms of how much he can acquire at one
exactly
point of sale.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And
so, are you saying, and that limit is so many grams, or?
Yeah, and again, I think that if you look at if you're talking about how much can a patient take in a day legally, it's 50 milligrams at first, going up to 75 milligrams. After that, then what we can sell, it is a lot. And quite frankly, I think that's going to be more of your chronic cases. What I believe is you're going to see a lot lower dosage recommendations from doctors. And so if we know what their dosage is, if let's say it's 5 milligrams a day, then we'll know exactly how much we can sell them because we can only sell them a 60-day.
Well, if your products are prepackaged, which I assume they will be, mm-hmm. they will be marked, I'm certain.
Absolutely.
With a specified dosage amount so that you would know if you got a pill, for example, mm-hmm. that pill contains
X amount,
5 milligrams of THC.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And let's say there are 30 pills in there. Mm-hmm. Can that patient buy that at one time?
They can, the limit is a 60-day supply.
So,
mm-hmm.
well, hell, if you did 60 times 75, you said 75 milligrams?
I believe that's what the limit is.
That's a lot.
Let's start, I think it starts at 60.
So 60
I'm sorry, 50 milligrams is the limit at
first.
That's
300 milligrams every 60 days is what you're saying, I think.
I think that's the math.
Yeah. Well, that's why we went to law school.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why your dad went to medical school.
Remember my granddad went to school. Dad was a judge.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's there. And that's why it goes back to us partnering with the doctors, and helping educate the patient. Here's what you need. This is your limit. Because again, we have to look at this as a medicine. That's why we got in this industry, for patients. Mm-hmm. And so, one of the things we just need help from everyone is understanding this is not a recreational program. If you look at the statute, 20-2A-2, I know you'll appreciate that. It's clear.
I've skimmed it.
Yeah.
And I've read the commission's slideshow and handouts that sort of summarize it.
But it's important to go look at that because that tells us what the intent is, and it makes clear multiple times. This is for patients. This is a healthcare program. This will not lead to a recreational program. And we've got to hammer that issue home because if we don't, you're right. It could lead to people trying to do things for the wrong reasons. And again, we want this to be the poster child for medical cannabis industries in this country. I think there are so many benefits, particularly with the pain relief, without that chance for addiction. That's near and dear to a lot of us. We've got a lot of friends, that people I've known throughout these years that either got addicted to or passed away, overdosed on these opioids.
Oh yeah.
And so, we see this as such a good alternative.
In terms of revenues, are you limited in how you can price your products? Is there some governance there?
There's no price limitation on, the state has not set, here's what the price is. In our business plan that we submitted to the application, we have an idea of, where it could start, where a month's supply could start up with the gummies. I think in our presentation, we're forecasting that it may start at $60, $65 for a month's supply. And over time, as the industry gets better, and the cultivators get better, and the security, and things get smoother, price will decrease from there. Another big issue here is not the near and dear to my heart tax law, 280 Cap E. Politics aside, whether you are
280 Cap E.
You'll love this one. You'll love this.
Cap in that.
Cap E, capital E.
Capital
Yeah.
E.
So back in the 80s.
That is for you non-lawyers to distinguish from parens little a.
Exactly. But you'll love the history of this. And this is very few times I can find somebody that'll laugh about a tax provision. Back in the 80s, there was a drug dealer. And he, had all the criminal stuff against him. And, people, the IRS says, hey, he made income, 61, Section 61 says income is from whatever source, right?
Yep.
So even if it's illegal, you owe taxes on that.
Gross receipts.
And so what he did, he said, okay, that's fine, but I've also got a lot of deductions. I've got the cost of goods sold. I have what I had to pay to get it here, this, that, and the other. And so he deducted a lot, and the tax penalties weren't near as bad. In fact, it may have been that he had no income for tax purposes. And so Congress got together and said, nope, we're not going to allow that. And they limited what you could actually deduct. And so right now, I think we're limited to deduct, something like 25% of the cost of goods sold. And so, because of that, that leads to a higher effective tax rate.
Again, and greater revenue for the state of Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not only that, it's, I think the revenue for Alabama is going to be 9% regardless. 9% of whatever the sales tax is, regardless of what the price is. But you're right. But that's really more of an income tax issue for the owners. One of the things that just happened, and again, this has nothing to do with politics, but this executive order that deschedules cannabis from class 1 to class 3 will do away from that 280 Cap E. And if you think about it, Tommy, I don't know what your thoughts are, is we have a legal industry here in Alabama. 40 states, there's a legal industry. And the states have said, hey, this at least has medical, in our mind, has a medical use. But there's a tax provision that says it doesn't matter what the states think. We're still going to treat it as a class 1, and we're going to penalize those folks, for selling it, even though the state says it has a medical use. I think once we see that reschedule, that will help, and I think that can drive costs.
So are you now currently limited to 25% of cost of goods sold in terms of deductions?
Exactly.
From gross receipts? We mentioned the concentration of dispensaries in just from looking at the map.
Sure.
And where all the dots are.
Sure.
They're all bunched up around Mobile and just north of Mobile.
So a lot of that, the reason that happened, and maybe if there was a flaw in the application, is that you had to have locations. You scored better if you had locations that you said, here's where I'm going to operate, okay? The municipalities didn't start adopting laws to allow the sale from their jurisdiction.
Daphne
until like October, November.
I know Fairhope said no, but Daphne said yes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so you had some states that, I think Birmingham was early on, but, they didn't pass their ordinance until, June, July, something like that of 22. That's 4 or 5 months before the application's due. And then most cities, they didn't pass those ordinances until late November, early December, a month before the application is due. And so much of that was dealing with the cities that you could deal with to show you had a location. And so I think that's why you saw a lot of, typically where you saw particularly in the South, those communities may have adopted those ordinances earlier and people went after
And that's
those
what
again.
created that. You know, I think back to the 20s during the era of Prohibition. I mean, think about it. You know what alcohol can do if inappropriately consumed and abused. And it's created deaths and disease. And so for the first time really in my life, I had a handle on, I can understand how Prohibition came into play back in the 20s. But somehow, some way, that dropped by the wayside. So if you try and compare what we are doing with medical cannabis, I see a similarity there, a parallel. But I don't see the downside to the cannabis that I see during Prohibition with alcohol, because I believe alcohol should probably be a Schedule 1 if used inappropriately, and I'll probably be fussed at for saying that, but I mean, it has ruined a lot of lives.
I think where I would disagree with you, and I understand what you're saying. I do think there is a medical benefit to cannabis. We're starting to get more and more studies showing that
you don't think people think there's a medical benefit to have them a shot of
I think there's a difference between a
Woodford Reserve before bedtime.
I just can't see that. I'm not sure you're going to see I'm so sorry. I'm not sure you're going to see a doctor say this is a true medical benefit. I mean, there are tests now saying that, you know, cannabis is a better treatment than like a synthetic opioid because it's less addictive. Cannabis is the same. You know, cannabis. You know, I don't believe. I think the studies out there, and this may be old, but I mean, I think somebody will say you'll never find in history anyone that's overdosed on cannabis. Now, I don't. That's just kind of a one of those things that you see out there in different, literature. But I think there's some truth to it. You know, I think, and I don't have the science of this, but the overdose, I'm guessing it's more than you could ever buy unless you legally is what I'm saying.
And so, to those people listening to the show that can't see what's happening in this room, they need to realize, you know, I sort of present as a little bit of an old hippie.
Sure.
That's because that's what I am. Mm-hmm. But you're a practicing lawyer with a very large firm, with a specialty in taxation, dressed very conservatively, a businessman. I mean, I want them to know this is not a guy coming in here that looks like Greg Allman did on the cover of Fillmore East album cover.
One of the greatest albums of all time.
I know. And there's so many people that may be listening to this show that will have no idea what that was.
Yeah. You know, so you'll laugh at this. Yes, I'm more conservative. There's no doubt. But you know, I don't know that conservative means anything. I don't know that conservative today means what it did 10 years ago. Yeah. You know, just like I don't know that liberal today means what it did 10 years ago. I have always been more fiscally conservative, probably for a lot of things socially. I'm going to lean more to the right. At the same time, I've been to 30 Grateful Dead shows. Favorite band of all time. That being said...
Into the Sphere?
Too many times.
Have you?
Yes, yeah. 5 times. And I took my son to the last show.
Section 200, 300 best seats?
200, 300, yeah. 204 is the best seats I had. Section 204. You know, and I don't know that there's a bad seat in the Sphere, honestly. I think down in 100 and some of the limited access, you can't see all the way up. But man, if you're looking all the way up during the show, you're missing the best part. So, but
that's again, interesting, and we've just lost another Grateful Dead member.
I know. Just you could see it in the last shows. He was slowing down. Uh-huh. He just, the way he was singing, even from like 23 at a Wrigley Field show to today to what he was doing last year, it was different, and we're gonna miss him. People don't realize how interesting that band is, what they, this kind of true Americana. It's not really one thing. They melded bluegrass and rock and blues and just made this pure American thing. It's just fascinating.
We need to do a show
anytime,
on the Grateful Dead with you.
Yeah.
I took my daughter when she was younger in 2008 to Obama's first inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2 degrees. But we had some tickets because a friend of mine had given me some tickets to the Illinois delegation. What do they call those things? Balls.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And we walked in the door of that ball that night to the sound of Bob Weir playing Box of Rain.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to enter in.
It was shocking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was like, I mean, it was a great parental daughter moment, dad-daughter moment. But we digress.
Yeah, and back to, I think where you're going, again, I think what we have to do in this industry, and it's incumbent upon me and the other leaders in this industry, is to recognize this is a medical program. And I'm sure people will say this and that, we've got to expand the recreational. That's not my focus. My focus is building a business that caters to a patient in a compassionate and professional way. If I can do that, I've been successful. Regardless of what the bottom line is, I've been successful.
And that's the real truth. We appreciate you being with
Thanks,
us
Tommy.
today.
Always a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
May have you back.
Anytime. Would love to.
All right. Thank you for joining me today on The Real Truth. My name is Tommy Spina. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I hope you will follow or subscribe to my podcast and listen in to the next episode. If you found it valuable, please take a moment to rate it and review it. It helps us to reach more listeners that care about the issues that matter. Share it with a friend. Stay engaged and remember, the truth matters. I'll see you next time.